So you're going to publish a big report on Surkov leaks, as far as I understand. What is it and how you came to this idea?
Well, Surkov leaks originate from 3 dumps of emails of Russia's right hand, Vladislav Surkov, who is also called Putin's Rasputin, and his first aide in Al-Ardzinba, as well as Kharkiv communist Alya Shandra and her son. So how do these emails come to the public eye? Back in 2016, late 2016, they were hacked by a Ukrainian cyber activist community called Ukrainian Cyber Alliance, and then analyzed by Inform-Napalm, an open source investigative research team. And the first 2 leaks, they were publicized quite widely in international media and Ukrainian media. But the 3rd leak that came just recently from his aide in Al-Ardzinba and the Kharkiv communist Alya Shandra, to my astonishment, they were not given as much attention. So basically, we are using these 3 dumps in order to analyze how the Kremlin conducts its hybrid war in Ukraine, to see if we can discern the strategies that it is using and whether we can find a way to react better to this war.
What information does it give us to understand what is the strategy behind Russian hybrid war?
What information are we using?
What information do we have from these leaks that helps us better understand or understand in a new way the strategy?
Well, basically, we are viewing the day-to-day communications of Putin's helpers that were tasked with managing the hybrid war in Ukraine. And by hybrid war, I mean the political part of it, because by now it's fairly clear that the military part of Russia's interference in Ukraine and political part they are separated. So right now we won't be seeing any facts of military presence, any commands to Russian military officers or the like. We are seeing the day-to-day operations of Russia's subversive political strategies in Ukraine.
What are the major symptoms of it, or what are the major tools of Russian actions?
Well, we can say basically they are an extended version of active measures, which is something known back from Soviet times. And by active measures, I mean really a wide complex of interference, including proxy political fronts, including paid street protests and paid activists that carry out provocations, that attack Ukrainian groups, that even plan terrorist attacks, and even carry out terrorist attacks because they planted a bomb in a car of the right sector once in Odessa. But other than that, there were several plans that are real terrorist activity, and they are simply criminal. Like, for instance, the Plan Troy that was publicized by the New York Times, the Times in Great Britain, that included. It envisioned setting up a proxy front to subvert Ukraine's Zaporizhia Oblast from within, to prepare it from a military invasion from occupied Donbass. So, and it included things like bribing SBU officers and infiltrating their people, like the pro-Russian people, into defense structures, and setting up civic groups that would just generate a lot of discontent with life and calls for Russia to come invade. And so this is a wide complex of measures. It's basically a program of measures to subvert the Zaporizhia Oblast. It never happened, but nevertheless, it gives an idea of the proposals that Surkov received.
Do you have the evidence of the Russian funding?
Oh, of course. It's interesting that in the 3rd leak, basically, mostly it consists of what I view to be grant proposals that Surkov received from different groups.
Can you give some figures, for example? How much does it cost for...
Well, the Plan Troy for Zaporizhia Oblast was estimated at $179,000 to subvert, to carry out this complex of operations.
So basically, there are people in Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine, who are saying that, look, we're going to organize street protests and we need so much money from you?
This is a very good question you raise. Unfortunately, yes, the Surkov leaks reveal that there's many people in Ukraine that are willing to carry out these activities in return for funds. There are, so basically what I see, there are two types of people that Surkov collaborated with Ukraine. One of them is the people who do it for money, basically, and the other, a small group that are the ideological allies that do support the ideas of the Russian world and are ready to collude with Russia in order to make it happen, which manage these other groups that were working for money. And, but I suppose that traitors can happen in any country.
And I suppose that all these funds is unofficial and all is given by cash, and you never find traces.
Well, we know that from the trial of the separatists in Odessa that were setting up the Bessarabia Republic, that a trial was held, and I think they traveled to Moscow to get this money, and then I think there was something of like a bank transfer. So from that we know the concrete ways of how this money came. But I mean, in Odessa, it was really like the employees. There were just these pay slips stating how much money each player should get every week coming into Surkov's account. Not Surkov, I'm sorry, Ardzimba account, because in Ardzimba, his helper, he managed the separatist activity in Odessa.
You made the announcement of this report in Western media, in British media. Was it easy to get the interest of British media to this
It was
case?
very easy to get the interest because they have the case of Skripal right now, and it's a big deal, and more attention is being paid to Russia's hybrid war. But you know, another thing that I think is very interesting from this report, upcoming report, that has relevance not only for Ukraine but other countries, is the amount of just general analytical information about Ukraine that Surkov received. And this is mostly Surkov. Maybe he was dealing with like the large strategy planning, large-scale planning. But the majority of the emails that he received are actually analytical briefs, very, very detailed analytical briefs, telling about the media situation in Ukraine, the political situation, all these little details that most Ukrainians don't know. So he had a team of analysts that monitor the situation very closely. And we see this as evidence of a technique being employed that is known as reflexive control, whereas a person who uses reflexive control analyzes his opponent to know him perfectly and to manipulate his opponent into making the decisions that are beneficial to the manipulator. So here we see proof of how Russia was doing this in Ukraine. Russia analyzed the Ukrainian situation, the Ukrainian fears, the Ukrainian problems and divisions to such a detailed extent that it easily manipulated them, it easily exploited them to generate the divisions that we are talking about so much right now in the USA and in Europe and beyond. So
basically, this is also a typical KGB tactics to find a faiblesse, a weakness, and then to manipulate it.
Yes. But here we see the ways and how this was being done. And I can say that, I mean, first it was very hard to figure out what is going on in this Surkov's emails. Why are all of these briefs being there? Why are there all of these analyses of the political situation? I mean, they're huge. I mean, it's a 20-page paper, like several of these coming in each day.
So, let me wrap up. And can you say when you're going to publish this report and what will be exactly in it? Will it be only empirical information, or are you trying to systematize all that?
The report will hopefully go out in late May. It will be published by RUSI, Royal United Services Institute in London. And there, of course, we try to include as much empirical evidence as we could. we try to go a step higher and analyze the strategies that are being employed in order to get to the patterns and the tactics that Russia is using.